Hi there! Today we're going to extract DNA from different samples using some simple household items. Before we begin, we prepare the samples and the materials needed. Prepare the precipitation buffer by storing a bottle of 70% alcohol in the freezer in advance. Take it out of the fridge when needed. We're going to extract DNA from a strawberry. To prepare the DNA extraction buffer, pour 1/2 tablespoon of salt into a beaker with 100 milliliters of distilled water. Stir gently until the salt dissolves completely. Next, add 2 tablespoons of dishwashing liquid to the beaker with the salt-water mixture. Stir gently to avoid forming bubbles and ensure that the soap is evenly distributed. Next, add the strawberries to a Ziploc bag and mash thoroughly. Then add 20 milliliters of DNA extraction buffer and squeeze. Make sure not to make a lot of bubbles. After that, we used a sieve to collect the liquid in a clean container. Once the extracted liquid is collected, prepare 15 milliliters of the cold alcohol. Pour the extracted liquid into a smaller container. Pour the cold alcohol. Let it sit undisturbed. Do not mix or shake. The DNA will appear as transparent, slimy, white mucus which can be spooled up. Observe and record the result. Now let's move on to the second sample, spinach. For this, we're going to use a blender and already added some spinach leaves without the stem. We prepared 20 milliliters of the DNA extraction buffer earlier, so we're going to use that and pour it into the blender. Blend the spinach and the DNA extraction buffer mixture for about 30 seconds or until the leaves are completely broken down. Once blended, pour the mixture into a Ziploc bag and mash the sample well. Then, pour the mashed mixture through a sieve into a clean container, just like we did with the strawberries. Next, pour cold alcohol over the extracted liquid and let it sit undisturbed. Remember, don't mix or shake the container. The DNA should rise to the top of the container, forming a slimy, white mucus that you can spool up with a stick or toothpick. Moving on to our third sample, we have a tomato. Put the chopped tomato into the Ziploc bag. Seal the bag and mash the tomato well. We're going to use 20 milliliters of the DNA extraction buffer that we prepared earlier for this sample. Pour the buffer into a Ziploc bag. Mash the mixture until the lumps are gone. Then, pour the mixture through a sieve into a clean container. After that, pout the mixture into a smaller container. Just like before, pour cold alcohol over the extracted liquid and let it sit undisturbed. Do not shake or mix the container. After a few minutes, you should see the DNA begin to form a white, slimy layer on top of the alcohol. Let's move on to our final sample, the banana. To start, peel the banana and cut it into small pieces. Add the pieces to the Ziploc bag and mash the banana well. Add 20 milliliters of the DNA buffer solution that we prepared earlier. Mash well with your hands to make sure it's mixed thoroughly with the banana. Then, pour the mixture through a sieve into a clean container. To make it easier to see the DNA, you can transfer the mixture into a smaller container. This will also make it easier to spool up the DNA with a stick or toothpick. Once you have the extracted liquid, pour cold alcohol over it and let it sit undisturbed. Remember, don't mix or shake the container. After a few minutes, you should see the DNA start to rise to the top of the container, forming a slimy, white layer on top of the alcohol. And there you have it, DNA extracted from a banana using just some simple household items. It's amazing what you can do with a few simple ingredients and a little bit of science.